Hey there everyone, this is Jeremy, the Music Andy, here to talk about Gas's newest release, Der Lange Marsch. Gas is the solo project from artist and DJ Wolfgang, where we experience a crossing of psychedelic abstract soundscapes and the imagery feelings of the forest. He has been quoted in saying that his intentions are to bring the forest to the disco, or vice versa. Wolfgang's approach to creating music is through sampling songs and manipulating them beyond recognition, leaving behind textural environments rather than songs. I want to start off by saying this album feels alive. It has emotional movements that only something of life can have. The howling synths in the beginning section of the song carry you gently yet firmly enough to keep your mind from wandering. An elastic bass drum and a piercing tone help create a trance-like environment. This is when Wolfgang begins to introduce other instrumental tones to invoke emotion in his songs. Strings tumble in weeping, signaling a loss. The next major moment turns into a much darker scene, accompanied by the same bass drum and dial tone, two pieces that remain consistent all throughout the entire album except for its final moments. Wolfgang begins to deepen synth tones, creating incredibly deep valleys with foghorns filling the air. This is interrupted with a wave of bright angelic soundscapes. These soundscapes feel like a hand reaching in the valley to pull you out. However, that does not mean that Wolfgang is simply going to let you out of the valley without a fight. Despair and enlightenment begin swaying back and forth, coming to a confined collision. The synths continue but are greatly muffled as the bass drum and dial tone center your attention. The next movement in this piece sucks you through a tube and spits you out into complete chaos. While traveling through this tube-like soundscape, Wolfgang throws in the additional harp here and there. I love this complement of tone and rhythm difference. Even throughout this aggressive hyper sound, the harp helps calm down and slow the feeling of the track. These conflicting feelings in the album seem to be a staple so far, with each listen being a new experience. It's almost as if the album plays you in a way. Starting the back end of this album, I truly do start to feel the long march that this album is named after. Sounds of crackling leaves and water flowing with insects flying overhead start to fill my ears. A triumphant horn-like synth cuts through this layer and we begin the march. Whirling synths trailed with the previous harp sample peek in and out of this track. The bass drum begins increasing slightly with more bite on its end note. Up until this point, the bass drum or dial tone noise has never changed. This greatly affects the intensity that the album has shown so far. A chorus begins rising on each side of the path that we are marching along to. Distorted feedback begins filling the sky, and the final end scene begins to play for us. Horrifying textures begin arising, dramatic synths begin falling out of the sky, and the bass drum continues marching behind us, allowing for no slack. Slowly, a wave of light begins peeking through this dark cave that has been built around you. The bass drum along with the dial tone begin to dissipate as the bright light begins swarming around you. Slowly, the crackling of the album is the only thing being played, allowing for a perfect repeat right back into the beginning of this album. Like I said at the beginning, this album feels alive. It does not have a beginning, nor does it have an end. It feels like a piece of media that plays you, allowing for a new experience every listen. The only complaints that I have about it so far are these track switches that happen on this. I don't know if it's just a streaming thing, but the songs would slowly fade out and then start blasting right away again, right at the beginning of the new track. I feel like this does a disservice and it makes the album feel incomplete at times. However, I don't know if that is the intention of the artist or not. Also, I have seen people leave reviews about this album saying that they didn't like the dial tone noise that is repeated throughout this album. I completely understand that if you do not like this noise, you are not going to like the album because it takes up so much portion of it. However, I feel as though it is a very important tone in the album and has a very important place in it as well. The constant swinging between the bass and the tone greatly contrast each other, allowing for a more rich taste when other sounds are introduced, complementing each one of these. With all of that said, I gotta give this piece 9 gas stations out of 10. What did you think of this album? What albums would you like me to review? Leave a comment below and let me know. Subscribe if you like the content, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.